G'day and welcome back to the Upside Fantasy Sports podcast. This is the matchups analysis for round 23. Oh, had my earmuffs on. Round 23 in the NRL. So we're in SuperCoach finals, NRL draft finals, guys. So matchups super important. I know so many people have tons of really difficult decisions this weekend, myself included. Just to give you an insight, without Teddy, I have to shift Hammer or Connor Tracy to fullback. Or even Dane Laurie. So if I move Dane Laurie back there, then I need to pick out of Dylan Brown and Jerome Luai. If I play Dane Laurie in my 5'8", I need to pick CT Dubs out of Tracy, Marju, To'o, and Kyle Ero. So yeah, it's like looking at because of the malleability that I've built by by playing my bench that way. I have to choose between, like, the people that are most likely going to be on my bench are Dylan Brown, Jerome Luai, and Greg Marju. That's the way I'm currently thinking of doing it. But just, yeah, so much opportunity cost involved this weekend in the do or die finals. So, yeah, first time I've been in a knockout final in a while. I'm not enjoying the process, especially because it just feels pretty cheap to go out in one loss when you come third. You know what I mean? Like, third is... especially in my situation, my third is so much better than my opponent's sixth. So if he beats me, it's really not a reflection of the season I've had. So pretty frustrating, especially when I'm the highest scoring team and I'm on the best roll. I've put like 3 900s in our league. That's pretty high together in a row. And finally, my team is the team that I wanted it to be when I drafted it. I just haven't had that consistent health and whatnot. Obviously I've made some trades too, so yeah, super frustrating. So I feel for all of you that may have got knocked out last round, and why would you be listening? But anyone that gets knocked out this round, for example, I really feel for you, especially if you came third or fourth and had really high scoring, one of the best teams in the league, but you just couldn't get the matchup luck. It doesn't make me want to change our settings. We do 6 in the final. 1 and 2 deserve that boon. It's really hard to come 1 or 2. It just definitely hurts when you're third and clearly better than at least one of the teams above me. So yeah, really frustrating, but we push on. So we're going to tuck right into these matchups. First game of the round is Rabbitohs Storm. Elite matchup for the right winger for the Rabbitohs, who looks to be Jacob Gagai again. And now that Cody Walker's there, that probably stays somewhat correct, I guess, or accurate. Great matchup for the left and right 2RFs for the Rabbitohs. Great matchup for Keon Kolomatangi, who presents then as an interesting VC or captaincy option in especially NRL fantasy and VC early on in the round for people in draft who may be lacking a bit of stock for VC options. Wish I had him. Hooker neutral matchup for Damien Cook, and then it's pretty grim for the Bunnies. It gets really tough with the next best matchup being a poor matchup for the left half wide, and it's bad for the left centre and the front rowers. So you can see how grim that can be. For the Storm, nothing's excellent, but we do have a massive run of great matchups, so bear with me. All of the following positions have great matchups for the Storm. Hooker, left half, front rower, left centre, right winger. Also who else? Just make sure I've mentioned everyone. Right winger, left centre. Yeah, left winger doesn't make it in, but he also has a good matchup. So it's all around good for the Storm backline, except for the right centre and the right 2RF, where it's a little bit tougher. The lock, it's tough, but no one's starting the Storm's lock. Remember, it's Trent Liero over Katoa this weekend. So for your VCs and C options there, nothing really jumps out, except maybe if you're a bit desperate, you got Harry Grant. I don't want to... I mean, Munster you could VC. I don't know like how well he's playing. I haven't watched him closely, unfortunately. But yeah, so, I mean, they're solid options. It's interesting for Jerome Hughes owners. You're still going to VC him, guys. He doesn't populate the scorecard here, but he's definitely someone I would be interested in VCing, given it's a Thursday night. I wouldn't straight captain him because of this, and just the Bunnies, who knows what they're going to throw up now. And with Cody being back, there might be a little more applied. For anyone holding Jai Gray and relying on him, he does have a pretty tough matchup this weekend, but I think he's more of your sort of, I wouldn't say he's a work rate fullback, but I don't know if he's the kind of... I think you can still play him, especially if it's in your 5'8" and you need to. I think you can go for it. The next game is the Titans Sharks. For the Titans, they've got a great matchup for the hooker and then good matchups for the lock and the left centre. And then it gets pretty tough. We've got the fullback with a neutral matchup. Front rows have poor matchups. And then it's bad for a lot of other positions, including right 2RF, left winger, and right centre. So not sort of the matchup you'd expect for the Titans who've been playing a lot of good footy. I probably wouldn't over-index on that, though. I would still play my good Titans players with confidence. I think the Sharks, they're good, but they're not amazing. And I think the Titans are playing pretty good brand of footy, especially because this game will be at home. I think it's at home. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's at home on a Friday. It is. For the Sharks, gun matchup for the fullback, great matchup for the left 2RF, which is Teague Wilton, but without Trindle there, guys, Teague Wilton it's tough whether he's a sit or start. He just hasn't been giving. He's been giving you solid score like that 50, maybe a bit lower, but in a do or die final, do you need a bit more juice? He's a guy I need to consider sitting as well. Good matchups for the right centre, left centre, the lock. Neutral matchup for the right half, which is Dan Atkinson. Bad matchup for the left winger and the right winger. And tough matchup for the right 2RF. So one of my sit-start decisions this weekend is Kyle Iro. Good matchup here, is interesting. I will consider that, but he's outside Brayley, unless Brayley switches edges, which I doubt he will. So how much quality ball will he get? I'm not sure, but Iro's been looking good. But that's because that's the Trindle effect on the left edge. So I'm not sure about Iro, but the base is really reliable, so that might be the thing that swings in for me. The Titans are dominant down the edges, and so are the Sharks. So it'd be a really weird game, both teams being so good down their left and right edges, and discrepancy in favour of the Sharks. I'll just go back and just remind people that Rabbitohs are dominant down their left. Storm are also dominant down their left, but they're really quite balanced overall. Eels Panthers is game 3 Friday night. For the Eels, great matchup for the left winger. A good matchup for the hooker, the fullback, the front rowers. Poor matchup for the right second rower, which is Bryce Cartwright. Bad matchup for the left half, left 2RF, and the lock. So pretty grim pickings there for the Eels. It's going to be pretty tough for them to generate a lot of SuperCoach points, I'd suspect. They're balanced scoring across the park at the moment, especially no Moses. They sort of get a little bit everywhere. For the Panthers, gun matchup for the left winger. That is now Sania Taruva, so bear that in mind. As far as we know and what's gone on the weekend. Elite matchup for the left half, Jerome Luai. Elite matchup for right centre and right winger. So To'o and Tungo both have elite matchups. That's really enticing. And the fullback has an elite matchup, Dane Laurie, hence why he's a pretty keen start for me and someone I've recommended people grab as a plug and play this weekend. You hopefully get one more weekend out of Dane Laurie. Neutral matchup for the front rower, so it starts to lean down, which is pretty interesting here for in respect to the Eels defense and where the Panthers score. Bad matchup for the right 2RF, tough matchup for the hooker, and poor matchup for the left 2RF. But I wouldn't read too much into that poor matchup for the left 2RF because the players outside him, the player inside him have good matchups. I'm expecting that then to be enough. And on the flip side, Nathan Cleary doesn't get a mention in the matchups here. But if I just look at the more detailed breakdown, he's just under par, like, for the matchup here. But is that because left half? He's running at Dejan Arce, I think. Dylan Brown defends on Dylan Brown's on the left edge. Oh, he's running at Dylan Brown. No, Dylan Brown's playing on the right now. So he's running at Dejan Arce. I'm not overly stressed because what you'll see is the right centre, the right winger having elite matchups outside, the bad matchup for the right back rower, and the kind of like poor matchup for Nathan Cleary. I still suspect him to go quite well, and the Eels overall have been a bit of an abomination. I reckon they turn up for this one, like from a energy perspective, but I don't think they have the class or the leadership or the stock to compete with the Panthers. So probably expecting a pretty good Panthers game here on Friday night. But who knows? The Eels have sort of been weirdly competitive against the Panthers at times in the last few years. As we know, they made a grand final and stuff, but Moses isn't there. Yeah, not expecting too much. It's a weird one, but To'o owners fire him up on the right. Taruva owners, I reckon you've got to fire him up on the gun here against the Eels. The Eels are balanced in their scoring, and the Panthers have shifted now to being right dominant, but they're still balanced. So, guys, remember, it was right to start the year with Nath. It was then left for a long time with Luai, To'o, all chiming in. Now we're going right because Nath's driving a huge portion of that scoring on the edge with his high scores the last few weeks. It's flown into the data, and now they're balanced because they've scored a bunch of points around the place, and then Nath's starting to tip that back to the right. Remember, it's not meaning they don't score all their tries down the right. That's not the case. It's that the SuperCoach points are dominant there because the action that Nath's creating and his high scores himself is just ripping through. So he will be the best VC for me this weekend. The next game, game 4, from the Raiders, right to RF has a gun matchup, right centre gun matchup, lock great matchup, fullback great matchup, right winger good matchup, left to RF good matchup, hooker bad matchup, left centre tough matchup, front rower tough matchup. So anyone looking to VC Tarpanay, just maybe hold off on that one. They're dominant through the middle of the field. The Raiders, for the Seagulls, where things are a little bit better, but still, well, they're not a little bit better, actually kind of tough, because the Seagulls have the discrepancy in their favour, but the Raiders have more of the standout matchups for the right tire from the right centre. That's your Matt Tomoko. For the Seagulls, great matchup for the front rowers, the right centre Garrick on return, the lock, the right half, which goes well with Garrick there, which is DCE. Neutral matchup for the left centre, bad matchup for the right winger Saab, but not imagining that to be too crazy. I'd still play him. Tough matchup for the fullback Tommy, again, that doesn't bother me. A poor matchup for the left to RF, but you wouldn't be relying on Carl Lawton anyway. Yeah, overall, they've got the pretty solid discrepancy as Seagulls, and they're dominant down their right edge, so I'm backing the right edge in. That's their dominant side, despite what the matchups here say. The reason Ola Kawatu doesn't get a mention here is that Huddy Young is pretty good at choking out his opposing 2RF SuperCoach scoring, which is interesting. Game 5, Cowboys Broncos. For the Cowboys, elite matchup, right 2RF and right centre, so that right dominance. The left winger has a great matchup. The left half has a great matchup, and then more great matchups for the right half, right winger. So it's fire up or your right edge Cowboys. Front rower has tough matchup. Left to RF, tough matchup. There'll be a few questions about Drinky. Guys, he has a good matchup. He's all good to go. Drinky's a solid captain if you're relying on him, I think, in this one. And unfortunately, I'm versing him. The Cowboys are dominant down their left, but you can see this matchup. It's the right that's calling for that's going to have the dominance potentially here. They have a massive discrepancy, so it's could be a bloodbath here, unless the Broncos really fire up behind the poor performances. But it might be a matter of they want to, and they may not have the cattle or the energy. For the Broncos, though, there is great matchups for the right to RF, the left half, the left to RF. Good matchup for the right half, the right winger. Neutral matchup, right centre. Bad matchup, hooker. Poor matchup, lock. And a neutral matchup, left centre. The discrepancy is massively in favour of the Cowboys, as I mentioned. Cowboys dominant down the left, as I mentioned, and Broncos are in the middle, dominant, not too fussed on that one. Game 6, Dragons Bulldogs. This should be awesome to watch. Apparently it's sold out. We've got a few gun matchups, which is interesting. The lock for the Dragons has a gun matchup. The front rowers have gun matchup. So that Dogs pack starting to leak a lot of SuperCoach points, guys, without Max King to shore it up, which is really interesting as we look into finals and who's coming up against them. The hooker has a great matchup for the Dragons. Right centre, great matchup. Right to RF, neutral matchup. It gets bad for the left half and the right half and the fullback. So your Dogs, those edges are pretty good at defence, which we love to hear. Discrepancy in favour of the Dogs, but it's not monumental. The Dragons are dominant middle with a bit of right, which is interesting. So that's good for low max owners and the forwards that are scoring well for the Dragons. And then for the Bulldogs, there's a gun matchup for the hooker, Reed Marnie. Elite matchup for the lock, right half and left to RF. Good matchup for the right centre, which is Critter. Neutral matchup for the front rower, bad matchup for the left centre, tough matchup for Karaz, but I'm not letting it phase me at right wing, and then poor matchup for right to RF. Yeah, balanced Bulldogs at the moment, scoring a little bit everywhere. So pretty interesting. Not a lot of outside backs populating the matchups though for the Dogs. Next game, game 7, Dolphins Warriors. For the Dolphins, elite matchups for the left to RF, front rower, hooker. Great matchup for the right half, good matchup for the right to RF. Bad matchup for the right centre. Left winger has a tough matchup and a poor matchup for Hammer. But after watching Gutho, I'm not too stressed on the Hammers matchup. He's sort of just a try guy. He's either going to pop up and score 3 or 2 tries, or he's just not going to. And that's just who he is. I don't think he's guys, I don't think the matchup on Hammer is as important as you might think. Warriors have a massive discrepancy though, which is really scary for the Finns, who are really slipping. The Finns score a little bit everywhere. They're quite balanced in their scoring on SuperCoach. For the Warriors, they have gun matchups for the left 2RF, at the right half Sean Johnson, and the left winger, I think Edward Kosi. Elite matchups for the lock, front rowers, and the hooker, Wade Egan. So good for Barney and AFB this weekend. Neutral matchups, so no real bad or tough or poor for the Warriors. So really good sign for Warriors players. Neutral matchups for the right centre, right winger, right 2RF. It's as bad as it gets. So pretty nice weekend there for the Warriors, but I'm also pretty confident in my Dolphins outside backs, to be fair. Knights Tigers is the last game. Gun matchup for the left half, Phoenix Crossland, and the left centre, Dean Lucas or Dylan Lucas. Right winger and left winger have elite matchups, which is why the sit start is a bit harder this weekend with Greg Marjorie because of the matchup here. The form doesn't get me excited. It hasn't been super bad actually, but just after a bye and then last week against the Panthers, it's hard to be excited about plugging in Greg Marjorie in a do or die final. But anyway, elite matchup for the wingers, and for Kalyn Ponga has an elite matchup. Right 2RF, Frizzell has an elite matchup. Left 2RF, neutral matchup. Lock, neutral matchup. And the hooker has a good matchup for the Knights too, so it doesn't get bad for them. They've got the big discrepancy in favour of them, and they're balanced SuperCoach scoring across the field. For the Tigers, right centre, elite matchup. Right half, elite matchup. Left half, elite matchup. Left centre, elite matchup. Great matchups for the right winger and the fullback for the Tigers. Bad for the left 2RF, Samuel Afinu. Bad for the lock, and bad tough matchup for the hooker, Api Coruscant. They're sort of dominant in the middle, and the Knights are quite balanced at the moment. But yeah, overall, pretty keen to get the Knights boys fired up if you have to. Guys, that'll do it. There will be no questions. I've recorded this one a bit early just to get ahead of the rush. I hope that's all good. Overall, good luck in your do or die finals this weekend if you're in that situation. If you're on the bye, keep your eyes peeled on waivers, and appreciate all the support. A like goes a long way, guys. A comment goes a long way. And if you're watching and not sub, please sub, obviously. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. Any questions, hit me in the comments, hit me on Twitter, or jump in our Discord. Everyone's there keen to help out with tough decisions in SuperCoach. See ya.